Fox wants future Big 12 inventory. So does ESPN. I think there's a growing gap between Big 12 and Pac-12 in exposure. Not just money, but the exposure component. Big 12 is gaining a bigger and bigger advantage. We're going to go over an article here, an awful announcing article that came out October 14th. A lot of people have been talking about Dodd's report on inventory trades, potentially between Fox and ESPN in regards to the early release of Oklahoma and Texas. But I think there's a little nugget of information that people are not quite seeing. We're going to bring that to you today at Peek Around the Corner. But first, we're going to talk about what it would be if we had the expansion to 12 schools right now, 12 school playoffs right now in 2022. What would it look like? Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar, episode 76. Please smash that like button, subscribe to our ever-growing channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Thank you so much. Put down your comments in the comments section below the video. I read all the comments. I love them, even the ones that disagree with me, especially with the ones that disagree with me. Here we go. If you look at the chalkboard, the Peek Around the Corner chalkboard behind you, the playoffs would play out like this. If the AP poll was the College Football Playoff Committee poll, selection committee, and it was the last after the conference championship games. But we're just pretending here what the playoffs would look like right now in 2022 if we had a 12-team expanded playoffs. You'd see that the top four seeds would be Georgia, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Clemson, number 3, and TCU, number 4, because those would be the 4 top-ranked conference champions, right? TCU would be number 4, ahead of Alabama, ahead of Tennessee, ahead of Michigan, because TCU would be the 4th rated conference championship. I love this 12-team expanded playoffs. I love the format. I can't wait till it becomes official. Hopefully here real soon. Those would be the top 4 seeds, and they would all get in the bye in the first round of the playoffs. 5th seed, Tennessee, would play Cincinnati. We believe at home. We believe those first round games will be at home campus. Tennessee versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati would get the 12th seed in the playoffs because they would be the 6th ranked conference champion, the 6th highest ranked conference champion, right? Even though they're not in the top 12 in the rankings, they would be the 12th seed in the playoffs. 5 versus 12, Tennessee, Cincinnati. Winner would play TCU, probably in the Cotton Bowl. Number 8th seed, UCLA would play 9th seed, Oregon. UCLA would be the top rated, there'd be the Pac-12 champion, and they'd play 9th seed, Oregon. The winner of that would play Georgia in the second round, probably, right, in the Sugar Bowl. Probably. The way that they have the format written out right now, again, it's not official. Hopefully it becomes official real soon. UCLA would probably play in the Rose Bowl at home against Oregon. You have 7th ranked Alabama versus 10th ranked Oklahoma State. Again, Alabama would have to drop to the 7th seed in this playoff format. And the game would be played at Alabama. The winner would play against Ohio State Buckeyes in the second round. Ohio State would be the number 2 seed, and the game would probably be played in the Rose Bowl. Michigan, 6th ranked versus 6th seeded versus USC, 11th seed. After that loss at Utah, USC would be the 11th seed. The winner of that game would be played at Ann Arbor, and the winner of that game would play Clemson in the second round, and I would probably presume it would be played in the Orange Bowl. You see how that would play out. Now, if this was, let's say we had the 12-team conference playoff, 12-team expanded playoffs in 2022, and let's say this was the projections after week 8, it would be fantastic. There'd be so many teams still with hopes to get into the 12-team playoffs. So many teams. You used to have Tulane still believing that they could get into the playoffs as the American Athletic Conference champion and as the 6th highest rated conference champion throughout the 10 FBS conferences. You'd have teams still in the Big Ten. You'd have teams like Syracuse in the ACC still hoping they would get in that large bid. If they couldn't win the ACC championship, they could get in that large bid. Still a lot. It would be so much to play for so many teams. Illinois, they would still have dreams of making the playoffs. Go right down the list. So many teams. So many more teams would still be thinking that they could make the conference football playoffs, including Utah Utes. Now what are they ranked? 13th, 14th in the country, 12th in the country. They're 5-2. They just had a huge win against USC. They're right behind USC. They could climb above USC potentially and grab one of the last at-large bids. Can't wait for this to happen. I hope it happens for 2024. I hope they can get the deal done. Write down your comments in the comment section below the video. Let me know if you completely disagree with me, agree with me, what you're excited about for the new expanded playoffs to happen here, hopefully in 2 more years. Let's get to the story of the Big 12. Let's get to the story. Here's an article written by Awful Announcing by Andrew Bolschultz, October 14th. It goes to the Dennis Dobbs reporting. There's a lot in here. I'm not going to go through it all, but there's a lot in here. Basically, the fundamental parts of this article is Fox is blocking the ability for Oklahoma and Texas to leave early to go to the SEC because Fox wants to be paid back the value that they would lose in losing Oklahoma and Texas early to the SEC, right? Because once Oklahoma and Texas goes to the SEC, Fox will lose those 2 big value brand schools. Those schools will be SEC, and the only media company that owns SEC rights is ESPN. So according to the Dennis Dodd report, you can read that. That was late last week. That was Friday, I believe. You can read the whole article on Awful Announcing in respect to Fox's blocking the early exit of Texas and Oklahoma. But there's one part of this article that we at Peek Around the Corner wanted to point to. Here's an update. I'm just going to read you this part of the article, not too much of it, and then we're going to attack it, okay? Update. CBS posted a very significant update to that story later Friday, indicating there was a miscommunication with Dodd's source and the inventory trades were about future Big 12 deals, not the current deal. This is what we want to talk about at Peek Around the Corner. Here's the new language they have posted in full. Though there was a belief that Texas and Oklahoma may have been attempting to exit the Big 12 1 year early in 2024, sources told Dodd that Fox would likely have demanded a return to make its future programming whole, including a top-tier selection of games years into the future, given the marquee programs would have left its airwaves early. That's Texas and Oklahoma. That's beyond what would have been a potentially massive early exit fee the programs would have needed to pay the Big 12 directly. So we're going to read a little bit more of this article, but I just want to make this clear. For Texas and Oklahoma to leave the SEC, Big 12 early to go SEC, they both would have to pay a massive exit fee. It's been reported $80 million each to get to the SEC before 2025. But beyond that, Fox would demand a return in future programming, including a top-tier selection of Big 12 games into the future. I'm going to go in the article a little bit more and then we're going to explore what all that means. Back to the article. That makes more sense. This is from Awful Announcing. That means there isn't a provision on inventory trading in the current contract, but that an early Texas and Oklahoma exit for the SEC would impact Fox's willingness to sign a lucrative future Big 12 contract unless they pick up some gains against ESPN in the Big 12 or elsewhere. We're going to get back to that. That's a future negotiation, not an existing contractual provision, and most things can be negotiated. That still lands in the same place of Fox is the main party blocking an early Oklahoma-Texas exit, quote unquote. But it does so in a way that fits better with the previous reporting. It's not Fox blocking this over a clause in the current contract with ESPN. It's Fox blocking it by saying, we won't sign a future deal unless we get some advantages versus ESPN. Okay, right now, as we sit here today and many years out, the number one property of ESPN in the college sports space is obviously SEC. The number two property in ESPN sports in the college space is ACC. What Fox is trying to do here is its number one product in its college space for Fox Sports is Big 10. It wants to make the Big 12 its number two. So what Fox is saying, hey, you want to have Oklahoma and Texas leave early? Okay, but we want a future top-tier selection of Big 12 games going forward. We don't want the number two choice of games. We don't want the number three. All weeks or most weeks, most of the Big 12 content, we want that number one spot. Now, this is going to go one or two ways. Okay? First of all, I believe, many people believe, Texas and Oklahoma would be willing to pay that exit fee to get out of the Big 12 early. They're going to make that up in SEC payments in the first 2 years, exposure and everything else. They would like to get out of the Big 12. That's number one. Number two, will SEC say yes? Because this story isn't played out yet. If you read the very back, we'll read the end of the article here. Let's just read the last paragraph, and then we'll tackle the whole thing. An interesting thing here is that the general implications of the report make more sense as it's stated than the specifics do. If this was Fox blocking early Texas and Oklahoma Big 12 exit by demanding financial penalties that Oklahoma and Texas found too steep to pay, that would be notable new reporting, but it would fit with everything that's been written so far. Oklahoma and Texas have deals with the Big 12, and Fox has a deal with the Big 12, and there are previously reported financial penalties for changes to those deals. But taking this to penalties for ESPN is a huge jump, and taking that to inventory trades and not just financial penalties is a step further. It still will be worth watching to see if more comes to this. Okay, so basically what we're saying here, basically what they're reporting here, is Fox is probably willing to let Texas and Oklahoma out, but they want future top-tier selection of Big 12 games. You would think, we know that Oklahoma and Texas is motivated to get out early. You would think ESPN would be motivated to get out early, to get Texas and Oklahoma out early. So what is stopping this? What is stopping Texas and Oklahoma to get out early? You would think that ESPN would say, that's good, that's fine. Fox gets top-tier selection in the future contract with Big 12. You would think Big 12, Brett Yormark, would say, yes, that's fine. We'll take that top-tier selection, Big 12, Fox gets first selection, ESPN gets second selection every week. As long as the money is right, we'll do the deal, right? Brett Yormark has been saying there's been healthy negotiations, discussions with Fox and ESPN. So who's holding this all up? For Texas and Oklahoma to leave early. For Fox to get the top tier selection years going forward after 2025. It's not about the current contract. Well, maybe it's ESPN itself. Maybe ESPN doesn't want to give up the advantage to Fox in future Big 12 content. Maybe ESPN doesn't want Fox to get the top tier selection every single week. Maybe ESPN is okay for Texas, waiting on Texas and Oklahoma to go to the SEC in 2025. There's a lot to play out here. But either way it goes, this is good news for the Big 12. For the Big 12. This is good. This is all good. I'm sorry, but when I read this, I took this completely different than most. This is great news for Brett Yormark. And they know this, and that's why there's great optimism. And there has to be great fear in Pac-12 country. We have heard reports that some people believe there's going to be a $10 million difference in conference payouts to Big 12 schools versus Pac-12 schools. Well, that's fine and dandy, but the exposure difference, the growing exposure difference between Big 12 and Pac-12, I think is growing. It could be huge. If Big 12 becomes ESPN's number 3 and Fox's number 2 versus Pac-12, what do they have? Hopefully become ESPN's number 4 and Amazon or Apple's number 1. Big 12 wins that exposure race every single time. If we get a deal, if we get a deal tomorrow and we wake up to reports that yes, everybody has made a deal, Oklahoma and Texas is leaving early to the SEC. That means Fox got what they wanted, and they get top tier selection for the Big 12 games. And they're going to pay it, and Big 12 is going to be fine with that. Or if we don't hear the reports on it, that means ESPN doesn't want to give up the top tier selection Big 12 to Fox, and now we have a bidding war for the top tier selection of Big 12 games content going forward after 2025. In conclusion, read the article yourself. Awful announcing. Came out October 14th. I read it as all good news for the Big 12. All of it good news for the Big 12. And then you read just a little snippet article coming out from Sports Business Journal this morning, Monday morning, October 17th, by Michael Smith. Great reporter. They do a great job at SBJ. Big 12 brings on translation to help build more contemporary brand. I'll just read this quick article. The Big 12 has hired creative agency Translation to help the conference build a national contemporary brand as it seeks a younger, more diverse fan base. Translation, the agency founded by CEO Steve Stout, is best known for its work across global sports and entertainment brands, as its list of clients includes NFL, NBA, State Farm, Beats by Dre, Nike, the Knicks, the Nets. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark is the former CEO of the Nets and the Brooklyn Sports Entertainment Group. The Big 12 will continue its work with longtime Dallas-based marketing LDWW and its founder Ken Luce. Translation, and LDWW will team up to develop the conference brand strategy moving forward. The Big 12 will have 14 members starting July 1st, but then will reduce to 12 members once Oklahoma and Texas depart for the SEC. Translation touts its cultural building and storytelling expertise. There's that phrase again, storytelling. Brett Yormark wants storytelling as the core of its brand work. Yormark hinted at that in a recent interview with the Oklahoman, saying, "We are going to make ourselves younger, hipper, cooler, connect with the culture in a different way. Hiring Translation is a clear move in that direction." Once again, it's about being hipper, cooler, cleaner, right? Making a story. And in that Oklahoman article, the Brett Yormark and other interviews, he talks about the storytelling that he wants to go all the way to New York to all the way to Los Angeles to Southern California. And again, there's that Southern California. Pac-12's got to take some action. It's going to be very difficult. We're going to go over it again in episodes during this week. It's going to be very difficult for the Pac-12 to expand. With Oregon and Washington still having hopes of getting into the Big Ten in a few years from now, for them to sign a long-term GOR with any teeth, a long-term grant of rights, is going to be difficult. Difficult for Pac-12 to expand with Oregon and Washington sitting there, probably not wanting to expand the conference. But man, if they don't expand to Southern California to grab San Diego State, I tell you, Brett Yormark is wheeling and dealing. He wants to make his mark. He wants to get to that fourth window, that fourth TV window. Remember, he said that if he can't get the Arizona schools, I'm telling you, Pac-12 has to take action. So it's going to be very difficult for the Pac-12's commissioner to be able to expand. But if he doesn't, Brett Yormark is sitting there waiting, wanting to expand the Big 12 brand to make it cooler, hipper, Southern California. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nod, nod. Put your comments down in the comment section below the video. Stick with us at Peek Around the Corner. So much stuff going on in college football, college sports landscape. And again, until next time, from all of us at Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take care of each other. Thank you so very much.